Hello, how's it going, everyone? And I want to welcome everybody to the Treasure Tuesday podcast. My name is Willie Thomas. I'm the Director of Media Integration at Robinson ISD. And normally, this podcast that we normally do on a Tuesday has to do with teacher PD and other instructional strategies to help teachers in their classroom to create some amazing learning experience for our students. But today is a very special session. Really excited about that, about this episode, where we are partnering with Leadership Waco, and then also they're going to be talking with some amazing ESC Region 12 education specialists, Monica Johnson, Arash Abnusi, and Crystal Robinson, where we're going to be diving into some social emotional learning and also talking a little bit about with our teachers and students and how we can support them and how important it is for today's students and tomorrow's citizens. So first up, let me go ahead and introduce Monica Johnson. Monica, tell us a little bit about you and kind of give our audience about where you're from and education. Why is it so important?
So, good morning, everyone. So I'm Monica Johnson. I first started out in work as a mental health professional. I'm a licensed professional counselor. I'm really passionate about mental health and just overall well-being. And after working with students, I realized the best way to really help those students is in education, because we spend so much time with our students in those settings. So I've been doing mental health counseling with students in education for a little over a decade. So that's really where my passion is, with the social emotional competencies, mental health wraparound services for entire families. Currently working at ESC Region 12, supporting post-secondary transition for students. So thinking about life after high school, working with students with special education, and also just making sure that they've got the skills that they need to be really productive citizens once they go out into the real world.
All right. So that's what I love that. Being productive students when they go out into the real world. That is our whole job. I feel like each and every day is to make sure we reach those students. So thank you very much, Monica. So now let's go ahead and hear from Arash, or what we call back in Robinson, Mr. A. What's going on, Mr. A? Let's introduce you.
Good morning, Willie and everyone. Very happy to be here today. I wish we could be in person to see you all beautiful faces today, but sadly we didn't get a chance. But this is even better right now because we are using very good technology and very steady hands of Willie Thomas. My name is Arash Abnusi, as Willie said. I'm a math specialist at Region 12. I've served as a classroom teacher for 10 years in the classroom, and also as a math specialist, campus level, and then joined Region 12 as a math specialist for Region. Worked at the part-time lecturer at the Baylor School of Education, and also I'm currently the president of the Texas Council of Teachers of Mathematics. As you hear all the math words there, that's my passion. Math is what I believe is the key to the success, one of the keys to the success of our students in the future. And I'm very passionate about teaching and learning mathematics. Also, there was a question about what is my goal, or what do I see what's my passion in education. I look at it as I like to summarize it in two words: collaboration and connection. I feel like these two words are my key words. They're my guiding words in education. And I'm very passionate about putting the educators together, connecting them and collaborating them, learning with them and from them at the same time. So I'm very glad to be here today. Thank you very much.
Oh man, collaboration and connection. Those two words, like you said, when they work in tandem, I mean, magical things happen. And I tell you what, Mr. A, thank you so much for being here with us today. And we cannot wait to hear how you utilize those two words inside of SEL with our students and our teachers. And last but not least, okay, I just met her not too long ago, so I'm really excited to have her here, Crystal Robinson of Region 12.
Hello, my name is Crystal Robinson. I grew up around the Waco area. I grew up in Coolidge, Texas. So those of you from Robinson actually understand small towns. So there you go. I've been in education. This is year 20 for me. I've been a classroom teacher, a campus instructional specialist, an ESL coordinator, And now I'm at the service center and I cover the areas of MTSS and 504. It's been a wonderful learning journey, and I've worked with some people from Robinson, so that's been great as well. My passions in education, it's always just been to be supportive and help everybody reach their potential, whether it's educators, campus leaders, students, and definitely their families, because I believe when we build strong communities and families, the education goes a long way.
All right. Hey, Crystal, thank you so much. You're right. When it comes to building those relationships, that is a pretty monumental thing, because if they know that you care, and that's going to actually put them so much closer to you and actually want to hear and develop those things within inside of them. So I thank you so much for being here again, Crystal. And yeah, I'm going to have to catch up with you. I didn't realize you were coming out to Robinson and Coolidge. Yes, small town. So I definitely get
small.
that.
More cows than people, but hey.
More cows. I love that. All right. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to move into, we're going to be talking to Monica here a little bit. She's going to share some information with us when it comes to some stats about generalities, when it comes to SEL within our social and within our system, within our culture. So Monica, go ahead and can you take us through some sessions here? Let's see. Let me get everybody back on stage.
Alrighty. So today's students, tomorrow's citizens. I just love that tagline because that really encompasses what we're trying to do every day when it comes to just everything that we're tasked with within today's schools. So we'll go through some slides here, look at some information. I'm really glad that Crystal mentioned she grew up in Coolidge. This is home for her, this region. Because when we look at the statistics, we know that, I just love this here, home is where the heart is. Whenever we're talking about where people are growing up and then where they've settled down whenever they are adults, most people stay within the same region is what we're seeing. So some really interesting statistics from this study. They showed that 75% of men stated that they still live in the same city that they were raised in. 31% of both men and women had said that they stayed there because they felt comfortable with where they were at. Going back to that just connection, collaboration that Mr. Abnesi had mentioned. So we see that when people really feel that they belong, that they have a safe space, they're going back to these places after they've gotten their education and training. So whether they're moving off to college, whenever it is time for them to settle and start really throwing down some roots, that's where they end up coming back. Again, we're just seeing that so many of us really are coming back to the same spot. It may not be the exact same city, but we do see some regional, some things regionally where people are staying. I know a couple of us were talking last week, and even if we're not settling down at the same place where we originally grew up, many of us are going to this place where our spouse grew up. So for myself and some of our other specialists, I'm way far away from where I grew up. I grew up in the Panhandle of Texas, but I live right around the corner from my in-laws. We're here where my husband grew up and where his family has really settled. And people are doing that because of the support that they have. They see not just financial support, but just that belongingness and also being in a space where they know it's going to be safe. They're wanting to raise their children in similar environments. I thought this statistic was really interesting from the U.S. Department of Labor. Look at the Census Bureau. It showed that nearly 6 in 10 young adults live within just 10 miles of where they grew up. And 8 in 10 live within 100 miles of where they grew up. If you we'll look at some graphs in just a moment that you can see this pictorially, where you can see that people aren't straying too far away from where they were growing up as children. And it was really interesting looking at this information too, that even though the prospects of higher earnings may be in more larger urban areas or distant locations, you might think that people really tended to move there, and they might for a little while, but eventually they do end up moving back to where they were raised. So this migration patterns here, this is a really interesting website that you can look at. If you just Google these migration patterns, you can see, excuse me. And so in the yellow there, you can see this is where the people were originally grew up for this area. The darker blues, that's where there's a higher concentration of those individuals, and lighter blue, there's less concentration. And so when you go to this website, you can move around and play with it and see where are people from a certain region moving to, where are they staying later on. So you can see here for those who were living in Killeen, Texas, the yellow right there, young adults who did not move, 52% right there in the yellow. You see these darker colors, about 36%, 4% up to 36% there in those darker areas. So they're not moving too far away. Lighter blue, we see less percent, about 1.5% to 4%. So you can see we have people all over, but really people are concentrating really close to where they first started. Then looking here specifically at Waco, McLennan County, again, we've got this number is even higher here. So with Killeen, we saw 52%. Right here, we see 63% of those young adults who did not move. We have more areas with that higher concentration, about 30% or so people staying. So just right around the area. You can see some of those outliers over here. Makes me curious what's going on over in Florida. But really, people are staying within that region here in Texas. And I love this one here, just breaking up. Texas is so large, so diverse, and has so many different things to offer. So you can see we're here in the Hill Country area. And thinking about the graph that we saw right before, most of those people were staying within Hill Country, a little bit in the Prairies and Lakes area, some of the South Texas plains, but really clustering in wherever they first started. If you were to go to that migration patterns website and just move around to different areas of Texas, you would see the same. Maybe someone was up here at the yellow in the Panhandle Plains. You would see those other dark blue areas concentrating in that area too. So even though people could be moving to larger metroplexes, thinking about like Dallas area, Austin, San Antonio, people still are coming back to where they grew up. And this here is our service area that education service in our Region 12 that we serve, all of the different counties. We've got about 87 school districts that we serve, about 10 charters or so. So you can see all of them displayed here. And so when we look at that, we have just such a reach of students that we are interacting with, and adults as well. I was at a session a few weeks ago. It was a smaller school, and I was thinking about this information. So I just asked them, I said, how many of you went to school here? And it was a smaller school, like I mentioned. So there were maybe 30 people there in that session, and 9 people stood up. They said that they had gone to school there, they had graduated. And so you could see, I mean, that was about 30% of the staff who were working there. They wanted to come back. And talking to them about why they wanted to come back, they said just that sense of community. They wanted to give back. They remembered the individuals who were there for them. There was one young woman who was there who's a newer teacher, and she was sitting in the same aisle as her math teacher who had taught her when she was there in high school. So it's interesting to see those connections and, again, that collaboration. So thinking about, I know we talked about the social emotional competencies. I love this here. This is from CASEL. And CASEL is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. They've got decades and decades worth of research and experience and evidence-based practices that they are promoting and that they help schools with. And the vast majority of the resources are all free. But you could see in the middle here, those social emotional competencies that everybody's developing. So these are things that students are learning at home, but we're also teaching, doing direct instruction at schools, and we're supporting our students. So that social emotional learning is made up of that self-awareness, self-management. We see that social awareness, relationship skills, decision-making. And then I love the outer circles here. Those are all the systems that are helping to support these. So of course, in our classrooms and schools, but we also remember, sometimes it's easy to forget, but families and caregivers and communities are such an important part of this as well. Thinking to those graphics that we saw, so many of our students are going to be returning here. So we really want to make sure that we're getting these things right when we're teaching these competencies, because the students that we're working with are literally going to be maybe the mayor of the town later on. Maybe they're going to be business leaders. Maybe they might be caregivers. We might be teaching their students later, or maybe they're working like healthcare, things like that. But what we're investing in our students now, we're planting those seeds. We're going to be reaping the benefits of that later on, whenever they do come back to work in those areas and live in those areas. So just thinking about all that information, I think it just really brings up a good question for us as adults as we're interacting, just thinking about who are our students going to be and what can we do to really promote that and help our students be the most successful they can be. How can we facilitate their development in whatever area that's going to be?
Oh, Monica, thank you. I tell you what, one of the things real quick about I am part of that 75% of men who have moved back to where they went to school at. It's funny. I don't want to say necessarily because of my family, but because of my wife's family. We moved off to Houston and went to college there and did some things. And, the whole goal for me in the beginning was to stay inside of Houston. And I want, for a job, I felt like there's more industry there, more career opportunities there. But after things, started moving along and we were going to get married, really want to be back part of her family, which my family too. Don't get me wrong, I love my family. If you're watching family, I love y'all. But just wanted to be a part of, have someone there close to the grandparents with our kids, and that support system I think was really huge too for us too as well. So moving back to Waco was a really big part of where, why, being part of that family was a really big part of why we moved back to Waco. And then of course it just so happens that now we're both working at the same district that we both graduated from, which is pretty amazing too as well, to be able to give back as well. And of course our kids go here as well. Like we talk about the social awarenesses of relationship skills. One of the things that I really loved growing up was that pride and tradition that we had growing up in Robinson. And I'll go back to my parents, or I say my parents, my father went to Robinson. His brothers graduated from Robinson. That's just that generational thing that we have grown up with and been a part of. My wife's father went to Robinson. I mean, gosh, the stats are crazy when it comes to that. So,
Yes.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Sure.
All right, let me bring you back up here. So as we start to go along and we're thinking about that social emotional part when it comes to people moving off, staying here, when it comes to integrating those things into our classroom and our community, let's talk about what makes a community such a strong and thriving community.
All right. Crystal, do you want to start us off with this? Or
Sure. I would say, honestly, interconnectivity. And I really think it's important for us as adults and educators to be a part of the community as much as we can so that our families see us in a different light. Because a lot of times the kids think we live at the school, right? And when they see us in the grocery store, they're like, wait, you can't be here. So I think being visible in authentic ways, right? Not just showing up at a kid's cheerleading competition because we're trying to make a connection, but showing up because we're supporting not just that one kid in our class, but our community as a whole. And unfortunately, sometimes it's a lot of pressure for educators to be role models, but that's part of the gig. So every time we step out into our world, into our community, we do have to be putting that type of positivity out there.
I like that. I like you talk about putting that positivity out there and it's a pretty big deal when you do show up to those games, those track meets, those cheer competitions, or even those UIL events, showing that support. The best thing, my wife's an educator, like you talked about, when you see them in a grocery store, it's like, wait a minute, you eat food?
Right.
You're not. Why aren't you wearing your lanyard and your teacher clothes? Oh, that's right. You're a real human being, and I think that's a pretty big deal. When we talk about too teachers who are there, who have been there since I graduated, and I see them, wait, what? That's pretty amazing to want to make sure to build those relationships with that. So in this next one here, I kind of want to hear from Rosh a little bit when we're talking about Actually, I'm going to go back here. I'm going to jump back up here. So when we're talking about prioritizing in the community and prioritizing mental health within our schools, so how does that positively impact our students' academic performance when we're talking about the overall well-being, Monica?
So much so. So I think about like Bloom's taxonomy, those higher order questions. That's something that educators are focused on. But I also think about Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Hmm.
And so there's some people say, just as a reminder about Maslow's before Bloom's, whenever our students have their basic needs taken care of, so physically they've got everything they need, but also whenever they are in a safe place, physically safe, but also mentally, emotionally safe, their brains are able to actually relax. We know that when students are in like fight or flight mode, there's areas of their brains that are activated, like your amygdala. And when that's activated, you can't take in information. You can't retain it physically. You're not able to. But when our students have all of their needs met emotionally, when they're connected with other people, you see less activation. That's where they can actually learn and they can hold on to information. So just taking that time to calm ourselves down as adults, calming down the students, we're not going to have to reteach the same information as much. We're going to have less difficulties with like behavior, like disruptive behavior and things, and we can actually make a lot more progress. There's some really good studies, and you can see where schools have implemented some social emotional practices, like they've gone all in. They've seen some big decreases in behavior concerns. You also see some of their, not just test scores go up, but you do see overall positive things academically. You see more students engaged. So people can report it on a micro level, but you also see the data on a bigger level supporting that they're making more progress academically.
Meeting those needs is pretty huge. I know that we get there, we know students arrive, we're not 100% sure where they come from, what it is they had, that meal that they might have had, that fight with that mom, that dad, or even that brother, mainly that sister sometimes. Okay, nothing against sisters, but Lord have mercy. And they get out the car and you don't know what's going on through their mind. And like you said, meeting those needs first, checking in with those students first before you start to say, I need you to learn this right now. That's a pretty big goal, I think, should be for every teacher. So yeah, I like that. Thank you for sharing that. So as we start talking about, we talk about students' mental health, let's jump into teachers' mental health. Because as we know, there's all kinds of, what do we got? Burnout. We got just all kinds of things happening with teachers when it comes to them being part of the education, being successful in the education environment as well. So in what ways does teacher mental health and educator wellness, when we're talking about impacting and effectively connecting with students, in what ways can we connect and support, or what ways does that help and connect and support with students when we're talking about teachers' mental health? Arash. Oh, and you're muted, Arash. It's okay.
My
There we
apologies. There
go.
you go. You missed the first 5 seconds. No, I'm kidding. That's a great question, Willie. And the fact that I feel we look at teachers. I always tell them, even the ones we go coach and in different schools, the thought is a teacher is not only a classroom teacher, but they wear many hats, such as they're a psychologist, they're a mother, sister, dad. I mean, you name a nurse. They wear multiple hats during the day, and you look at the mental sanity of a teacher within an 8 hours period of a day that they're given, being able to have that emotional balance of dealing with different students at different times at any given situations. It's a very tall order. Sometimes I feel like we don't quite see that value, or sometimes we overlook that role that the teacher plays in every day of the classroom instruction with all let's say 22 students. So the idea of how the success of a student is related to teachers' mental well-being is a very almost like it's a given. We look at a happy teacher that is mentally stable and is able to really give the best practices in the best form, deliver those, versus a teacher that is dealing with a lot of other side factors that are impacting her life in the moment, you will see absolutely the result will be completely different. Thinking about that, I would like for also Crystal and Monica to chime in and add to that. But I feel like the idea of getting or creating some boundaries for teachers, boundaries that are mentally will keep them safe in a safe area, will be probably one of the biggest priorities that we have in education today. Any thoughts, ladies?
And yeah, Chris, Monica.
No, I definitely agree. I know we've been talking since COVID. We've been talking a lot more about educator wellness, and what's good for our students is also what's good for our educators too. But if we're creating safe and supportive schools, improving our school climate and culture, that's something that we're working on a systems level. We have some people who are individually doing more self-care, and I applaud them for doing that. We're also working with our systems, with the decisions that are being made, giving our teachers autonomy to work with the students, provide the students what they need, giving them the time to address all of the many different initiatives that we're asking our teachers to handle. So it makes a huge difference whenever our teachers are able to feel supported and have everything that they need to take care of all the different mandates they're tasked with. They're able to flourish. We're going to see that difference translate into our students and how the students are able to connect with those teachers. And also we're going to see that in the data as well.
So Crystal, as she shared a little bit about that when it comes to those teachers, what are some things that you are seeing that kind of help with students and teacher wellness when it comes to social emotional learning?
Well, one thing that I kind of like to piggyback off of, he mentioned boundaries. And I think that is super important, especially for leaders in the building, to support the teachers when they set those boundaries. When I was in IS, some of my teachers thought that they could just call me or text me at 6:45 in the morning and I would answer. I did not, right? And when I got there at 7:30, I was like, oh, I saw you had sent a text, so let's talk about it now. And, there's this old saying that goes, you teach people how to treat you. And so they learned, okay, these are Crystal's boundaries. If I send her a text before 7:30, she may read it, but she won't respond. And I just think there's a lot of little things that we can build in our day, a lot of little things we can do. And like Monica said, it needs to be a system put in place for that, to where I've been in places where things like that were completely supported, and I've been in other places where those things weren't. It was so student-centered that we forgot about the big people in the building. And when you do the SEL appropriately and you're taking care of the educators, that really does trickle down to the students. And they're able to have that empathy and that sympathy because they're seeing it from their leadership. And they're seeing that, hey, I can have a bad day and people still can see me as teacher of the year. And when we have the teachers empowered to have those moments, it's easier to talk to the students, especially those in secondary, to be like, hey, you know what? You really messed up yesterday. Today's a new slate. Let's try again. So that empathy, that forgiveness, and those sympathy components have to be shown at the teacher level if we really want to see it implemented at the student level well.
Like that, empathy and sympathy. I'd say it's funny that you mentioned two things. You mentioned people reaching out to you at different times and hours. I know as administrators, sometimes we feel that that's our job, is to just work and be there, support and things like that. And so then we forget that when that time is off, when those hours are those off hours, and we send that email, maybe, I'm just sending this out to let you know. But as a school teacher, as someone who is not an administrator, they don't see it as that. They see it as that, I got to jump on this right now. Here's what's being expected of me. Like you said, I love the boundaries, and then being intentional with when you're sending things out or being intentional with those conversations, to let them know up front, this is not something that I expect from you right now. That's another way to help with those boundaries, putting that in place. And or of course, like you said, otherwise, just don't send it for right now. It can wait. That Google has this amazing scheduling thing now in Gmail, which I love. Oh my gosh, I love. So I can just pump out emails like crazy. I'm just like, and then 7:35, 8 a.m. and then go out there. So
Yeah.
I get the same response. So I love that a lot. One of the things I do want to mention real quick is we're talking about when it comes to teachers and working with students, when it comes to the social emotional stuff, and it comes to them being more effective. It's also, I've been reading a book, I don't know if you've heard of it. It's The Prime to Perform by Neil Doshi and Lindsay McGregor. And they talk about that total motivation. Sorry about that. And one of the things is that adaptability. Giving teachers and giving students the opportunity to be more adaptable in the things that they're doing, learning, and teaching as well helps to also bring up that social. They feel more pride in the things that they're doing, and it's not so, I guess, rigid of a workspace. So then they become more happy. You start bringing that passion into the workspace, giving those educators, giving them that a little more responsibility. Like, hey, I actually am making a difference based on the things that I really care about with the students and students too as well. Like you said, once you kind of dive into the things that they're into, boy, it's amazing the things that they'll show and that you can pull out of them. So I like that a lot. So good deal. So I want to talk real quick. So we talked about the correlation, with teachers' mental health and student mental health. But when it comes to longevity in the classroom, I'm going to put it out there. I think gone are the days maybe of the 20, 30-year teacher. I mean, I say that 20, 30-year teacher, even in the same place, 20, 30-year teachers who are retiring from districts, getting their 40-year thing, things like that. So when it comes to longevity in the classroom, how does the system support educators in terms of long-term impact on students and their communities?
So that's a tough one. Just because when you really look at our education system, it's very, again, student-centered. So that's why it's very important in our campus improvement plans and things of that nature, that we're really focusing on the adults in the building. Just in general, people who are mentally healthy live longer lives and they're more fulfilling. So therefore, that does go into the work environment. So teachers who have learned how to do proper self-care, they tend to stay longer. However, again, this goes back to what leadership are they under? Me personally, I was in some great places before, and then I got in one place that wasn't so wonderful. So if you're a leadership, you have to make sure that you're investing in our teachers if you want them to stick around. It's got to be more than jeans passes and those, popcorn Fridays. Those are great. But are we sitting and having those random conversations like, oh, I know your kid plays volleyball. What's going on with that? Your husband's from, Mesquite. I'm from Mesquite. So just having those genuine conversations, again, those same expectations that teachers have to connect with students. We need to make sure that colleagues are connecting with each other. Sometimes the PLC can just be a getting to know you, a sit and chat. It doesn't all have to be data, right? The data is important and we have to do it, but can't we have some conversation here and there? If you know someone as an IS, for example, I was on a campus where like everybody was having babies. And I did a lot of fill in for lessons, and I did it happily to where those teachers, when they were having a bad day or they had to call in sick, they didn't have that worry of, is someone going to be mad at me? Will someone take my class? Will someone help the sub? So just really creating that culture I've seen that will keep teachers around longer, even when times get bad, because they made that connection to the school community.
Oh, I love that. I love the culture part. It does. Arash or Monica, I want to add anything else to that?
Yeah, I would love to. Great points by Crystal. Absolutely great. And I also would look back at when we look at new teachers, the new generation of teachers. I've been noticing that there's almost like there's some sort of in a funny way. I don't know if we call it expiration date of how many years as service in education. And then after a few years, it's gone, and you either leave the profession or do other things, or you get married and have a family, and then forget about education. Back in my days and Crystal days, I've like 19 years, 20 years now, it was quite a hard profession to get into. I mean, it wasn't easy. I started in a small town of Blum, 6-man football. It wasn't easy to get there. Even that was a very, very hard process to get to the teaching world. But now I feel like it's very much like almost like we are becoming this. Is very we are coming and going. It's just really stability is not there. The idea that we also talked about in some of our meetings that we have with the leaders in Waco, some of the Baylor School of Education, and some of the school teacher prep programs, is the fact that what type of pedagogy our teachers are equipped in order to deal with. I mean, are they having enough pedagogy to be able to support all the different facets in classroom? We so often, I feel like we put so much emphasis on content when it comes to teaching that our teachers automatically are the first thing they worry about in the classroom is how do I teach, let's say, this concept versus how do I run a very effective, efficient classroom. But by that, what I'm trying to say is that that causes, when you don't have a good control of your classroom management, that I like to call the art of teaching, the art of it as a teacher. How do you go through the motions and keep a stable or build a culture in the classroom? You tend to get exhausted. After a while, you lose that passion because you cannot see everybody happy at the same time. You are not having the tools to deal with this different given situations at any given time. So that, to me, I feel like we need to also really start looking at our teacher prep programs. What are we giving them? What type of tools are we giving them to put in their toolbox and use it in their real life situations, not just necessarily reading in the book or having it as a lecture. So those are the points that I feel like I'm very passionate about, to be able to have somehow available to our teachers in the future, or any programs that they're going through.
Yeah, Monica?
I was also thinking about just investing, literally investing money and resources. Just the amount of money that we lose, the United States loses every year, in missed wages and missed opportunities due to mental illness or just individuals not having what they need, is up in the billions. Like, there's so much due to lost days, having to take off for doctor's appointments. When people are not at their healthiest mentally, they're not at their healthiest physically as well. We see just kind of this breakdown. So to help reverse that, if we would reallocate some of those funds, just supporting and investing, listening to the people about what they're actually needing to feel supported, not just assuming, we can make a big difference in meeting people's needs, meeting them where they're at, and also giving them education on how they can be healthier too. That will go a long way.
I like that you said, and it's actually it comes as everything y'all were talking about, the funding of the education of teachers before they even start and hit the classroom in those pre-service environments, to deal with the different situations that will come up, to help them and let them know, hey, you will be supported, and this is another way for you to be supported. I love building those cultures and the groups that Crystal was talking about. A PLC, Crystal, time where, wait a minute, where we don't talk about data. Wow. Okay. I think it's great, because here's the deal. It's funny. I sit in meetings sometimes and I don't know what's going on about that teacher's husband or that teacher's wife until I hear about it from somewhere else. And you think about the things that we could do to help support those teachers, because there are things happening outside of their lives that sometimes we forget about, that they're sitting right in front of us, and we're thinking, oh, you're just a teacher. You're here for this. You need to be doing that. But we do the same thing for students too as well. Getting to know, they're with us for 8 hours, 7, 8 hours of the day, students and teachers. what are we doing as leaders, as educators, to help support them when it comes to their social and their emotional needs each and every day? And I love that. I love the putting funding towards that. We put funding towards so many programs, so many initiatives. And I feel like sometimes that other part gets kind of left on the back burner. Like we just kind of, oh, you know what? They'll take care of themselves. They'll do some workouts and do stuff. But like I say, educating them, getting them to where they need to be. I think that's a really awesome thing that we need to, as like I said, as leaders, educators, need to figure out what we can do. Especially, businesses out there reaching in, becoming part of that school that's nearby. What are some things that they can do or we can do to help support, reaching out, go speak to one of those superintendents and instructional specialists, whatever. Like I said, they want, and they're just waiting for someone to come in and jump in and help out with that. So I know we talked about, what those different benefits would be as well. And when it comes to integrating mental health in the classroom, when it comes to into the curriculum, what those are going to look like and how that will help our teacher longevity, students when it comes to the things that they're going to be doing to keep them here in Waco, because we want to see Waco grow. We want to see Waco flourish. We want to see them be able to give back too as well. So at this time, I do want to open it up to some questions from our guests out there. Let's see here. I think we have a couple here. Let me bring this up there. All right. So Terry Doss. Hey, Terry, how have 4-day work weeks changed the landscape for educators? Wow, 4-day work weeks. So I'm going to say right now, Terry, I have no idea because I do not work in the 4-day work week district. And so, but would love to hear from our specialists who do work with districts who do have 4-day work weeks.
Monica?
Okay.
Go.
I will say I've been following this. We haven't seen the data coming out from our schools yet. We have heard anecdotally that people do feel they do feel like things are more compressed, so it's almost easier to focus on those things. And like, here's the work, here's the school, then there's other time for family and other activities. So anecdotally, people have reported it's been positive. Looking at the data where it's 4-day work weeks in businesses, we've seen businesses outside of education, there have been jumps in productivity. People reported higher levels of like job satisfaction. So coming from the employees, look at that data, it's been positive. I suspect we'll see similar data from schools once we have that, but we don't have it quite yet. I'm excited to see it when it does come out.
And what I hear from people, some of the districts I work with, they're 4-day districts. We have one in China Spring right now that I know, and then the one also is Academy ISD down South Temple. What I hear are mixed reviews about that, Tracy. I mean, I feel like some say it's good for teachers, but the teachers and the students, but some also can see some of the cons we got to talk about is the fact that there's a 3-day gap between learning, that by the time the students come back on Monday, they feel like they have lost, they have not quite retained all the information that they were given the previous week. So right now, but Monica is so right, we don't have a concrete data to look at it with more specifically from that angle.
Now, like I said, I have yet to really talk to anybody about that 3-day work or 4-day work week just yet. I know that kind of like what Arash was saying, when we do have it, sometimes the teachers do feel a little pressured when it comes to getting work completed and getting all of their critiques in and getting things with the students. But then, like say, I do hear sometimes I can see maybe when it comes to having that 5th day where people are working, where you have that time that's just provided for professional learning each and every week for those, like a lot of our I'm trying to think, K through 2 grade levels don't have PLCs. All they have is their planning period. And so being able to have that extra part of that time would be pretty great too as well. So just kind of looking at both ways. We do have another question here. It is from Melinda Adams from Extra Crow Event Center. So she's asking, what partnerships do y'all have in place with local universities to help educate future teachers and potentially retain them in the area after graduation if possible? So what kind of partnerships do y'all have?
We do have some, but I feel like Willie, you'll be also the one that be able to answer this one because again, your district also I know they're doing a lot of professional development schools that we have in the area. At Baylor Universities, also you have some Tarleton programs. But I've seen at Robinson ISD when I work, I've seen Baylor students there, the TAs, this is really encouraging to see them getting their education. But again, as far as how they collaborate on a level of educational level, education service level, we have often, I know we have a literacy, Crystal, you correct me if I'm wrong, but there used to be a literacy conference that we will partner up with Baylor University.
Yes, we still do that. We just moved it from the spring to the fall. So yes, the literacy conference is still in play. We have an annual special education conference where we collaborate a lot with Baylor and MCC and other local colleges. We also do things like this. Like there are several people at the ESC that work with like Baylor in different ways. I would say that like Baylor and MCC are our major contacts just because one, Baylor is the biggest university in the area, and they also do a lot with the PDS schools, and they seek information from Region 12 quite a bit. And we have like different people from different offices of the different universities and local colleges come in as guest speakers from time to time, but as a specific specific programs or specific partnership to do exactly what that question asked, we don't. We have a lot of things here and there. We also have, oh, I see a note from Jen. So I think that's back to you now, Willie.
So, hey guys, so thank y'all so much. We're going to wrap up here. That way we can keep our attendees moving on to their next session. But I want to thank Crystal and Monica and Arash for being with us from Region 12. We've learned so much when it comes to how we can better support our teachers and students when it comes to social and emotional learning in the classroom. And you out there as community leaders, guys, definitely reach out to these amazing folks. Be sure to reach out to your local schools too as well and see how you can play a bigger part and a bigger role to helping us educate our teachers and educate our students. So once again, thank y'all very much, and we'll catch you next time on another episode of the Treasure Tuesday podcast.